I'm DaShannon Lovin, your friendly librarian, and I'm back with some book chats. I'm so excited today to be filming in my new library. My husband got the bookshelves finished. I know that I've been talking about this since about March when the whole COVID thing shut down, but they are finished, they are here, and I love them. So there are the ones that are behind me, there's a corner, and then there's a whole other side. So I'll take some pictures and insert those, but I'm so excited that all my books are actually on the shelves and in order and categorized, and I love it. Actually, not all of them are in here. This fit my cozies, my fiction that I've read, my fiction that I want to read, my nonfiction that I read, my short list, so the books that are coming up pretty soon, the ones that I'm working with, but my nonfiction books are all in the front room. And my classics are in the living room. And all of the kids' books that I still have are in the sitting room. So they're not all in the same place, but it is close, and at least I have one place with real bookshelves where the majority of my books are held, and I absolutely love it. So I am super excited about that. It makes a great backdrop. Unfortunately, the room is like really big, so the sound's probably not going to be great, so I'll have to work with that. I just kind of wanted to see how it would do today with me just having what's in here. And then if I need to, I'll adjust and put some pillows or something in here. I don't know. I was thinking maybe I would do a little tour of what's on the shelf, but that's a whole nother video because I have not taped in like 3 weeks and I feel like I have a lot to talk about today. So let's get started. So books that I've finished since the last video. First and foremost is the Reese Book Club. Remember, I did get that message on Instagram saying that they were going to send me the July picks. Lucy Foley's The Guest List, and I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness, Austin Channing Brown. So both of these came in the mail to me free from Reese's Book Club, which is the Hello Sunshine Book Club. So I really appreciate that and want to put a shout out for that. They also sent a cute little bookmark in here, and it's got a book a day keeps reality away, Reese's Book Club. And it says, "Hi DaShannon, thanks for following along with Reese's Book Club." So that was super exciting. Thank you so much for sending me these 2 books for free. I appreciate it. I loved The Guest List. It has Lucy Foley, the author of The Hunting Party, The Guest List, You'd Kill to Be on It. Hello Sunshine picked 2 books for July. They normally only have 1 book a month, but there was a lot of civil unrest and racial divide over the summer. So they did add those 2 books so that we have the fiction that they probably already had ready. And then they added the I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. I've not read this yet. This is on my to be read this week list. But let's talk about The Guest List. This was just published in July and hit shelves, and it has the nice little re-sticker, which I love. This reminds me a lot of one of my favorite authors, Agatha Christie. We get that whodunit. It reminds me of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. Lucy Foley has, I think, 4 other books that she has already written. I've not read anything by her yet. I will definitely put her on my authors to revisit list. This is one of those mystery thriller books that you race until the end, so you don't know. And that's definitely very Agatha Christie. You don't know who did it. You get all of these different perspectives. This is told from multiple perspectives, which is really interesting and turns off a lot of readers right at the beginning. So usually you either like that or you don't. I don't find it confusing. Each chapter lists if it's from an omniscient point of view or who's telling you the story, and you get to know the characters pretty quickly. This is definitely one of those books where there are not a lot of likable characters, which usually is a problem for me, but it was not a problem in this because because it's that thriller, mystery, race until the end whodunit. I love that. I'm a huge mystery fan. I read them, I watch them, I love them. So in this story, it is set up as a destination wedding for a celebrity couple. You have Jules Keegan and Will Slater. Jules is in charge of her own online magazine. She's super successful. She is that boss woman. She gets what she wants, she knows what she wants, and she goes after it. Will Slater is an actor. He's doing one of those reality shows that's not really reality. So you have 2 very high-profile people. They have a destination wedding. It's on a remote island off of Ireland, and they've invited the important people in their life. Some of these people they've not seen for a long time. Will went to a prep school early on, and so those are his groomsmen that come back. His main groomsman, his best man, also went to the prep school, but he was more of like a charity student there. He doesn't really fit in with those prep school guys, but he tried, and there's definitely a lot of animosity there. Lucy Foley does a good job of having each character bring you up to speed with where they are in relationship to the couple. Jules, instead of having a maid of honor, has her best friend who's a male from when she was younger. So like teenage, you know, they were really good friends, teenage and on up. So that is her, you know, maid of honor. That's her best person that's going to stand beside her. So you also get a little bit of history in their relationship, which is a little complicated. Not going to lie, it's always a little complicated if your best friend is the opposite sex and you're getting ready to get married. So we have multiple points of view. We do have chapters that are omniscient, so there's just someone telling us a little bit of the background, but most of the chapters are told from either, it's AOIFE. I have never even seen that name before, and I was reading this book and then watching, I can't remember what show we were watching, but watching one of those new like noir mystery shows, and there was the same character's name. But Ophi, I'm gonna say. Ophi's the wedding planner. They basically own the island, the destination place. So she plans the wedding, she caters the wedding, she does everything to make the wedding go off right. There's Hannah, who is the best friend's wife. So Jules is having her best friend stand up for her. Remember, it's a male and it's his wife, so Hannah tells us quite a bit of a story. Jono is the best man. And then there's Olivia, who is the bride's sister. And she's one of the bridesmaids. So there's a lot of complication in this, and you know that that's what's going to happen. You know from the very beginning, it's a murder mystery. It's all about this destination wedding, and someone's going to die. So you know that to start with, but you have no idea who. And it's just interesting to get to know all these different perspectives. It's very complicated. There are a lot of really complicated relationships, and you don't know who's going to die. So it's not like, you know, Big Little Lies where somebody's killed at the very beginning and then it's just a whodunit, but you don't know who's going to die. And then, so you don't know who's going to turn out to be the murderer or who's going to turn out to be the victim. It's really good. It's a great page-turning thriller. I would highly recommend it, especially for summer reading, but it'll be a great fall read or whatever, a weekend. You know, I think maybe it took me about 2 days by the time I sat down and started it. It only took about 2 days. It's an easy one to dip in and out of because the point of view changes by chapter. So unfortunately, that's the only physical book that I have. The other books that I read on my Kindle, or NetGalley sent them to me and I read them on my phone, or they were audiobooks. So the rest of the books I'm going to talk about, I don't have something to hold up for you, but I want to tell you about them because I had a really good reading month. Our book club met about 2 weeks ago and we discussed Bruno, Chief of Police by Martin Walker. It's a mystery. I really enjoyed it. I actually really loved it. It's definitely one of those mysteries where the setting plays as much a part of the story as the characters or the murder that is happening. It was published in 2008. It won the Best British Crime Novel of 2009. I read this as an ebook on my Kindle. I got it from my public library. It did have a long waiting list, so you know we are coming up on our next book club meeting, which is when we choose all of the books that we're going to read for the next year. And I put it on hold, and it took me forever to get this book for some reason. Bruno, Chief of Police is the first one in the series. The second one is called The Dark Vineyard, so I have it on hold and hope to get it soon. I think there are about 13 books in the series so far, so that's quite a big series. I would classify this obviously as fiction and mystery, but then that crime novel too. The crime is definitely the center of this story, but because we know that they're setting up a series, the people that they introduce, the setting that's introduced, it takes place in a small town. All of that adds to the story and is just as important as the actual murder. I know I'm going to struggle on these names, but Bruno, Chief of Police, Bruno is a nickname. Basically, his actual name is Benoit Courriers. I'm going to go with that. I don't know if that's right or not because like I said, I did the ebook. I tried to find the audio for the next one because I think it would be a really good one to listen to, but my library did not offer that. He's the only policeman and therefore the chief of police in a small town. It's a small French town, so that French countryside. He's also a former soldier, so that plays into his character of then basically, you know, retiring to this small town to become a policeman and a chief of police where there should be no crime, and then that's the whole story, is that there is a vicious murder at the very beginning. But he's a former soldier, and you're talking about a former soldier in French history. So we do get some of the history of military in France, and I thought that part was super interesting. It plays a big part in the story. There's a murder of a North African who has moved into this small town. He's a part of the community. Not a lot of people actually know him, but they know his family. So they're very close to the family of this man who is viciously murdered. It appears to be a hate crime. This was a really timely read, again, for what was going on in America in the latter part of June and beginning of July. So it really helped with our discussion. There was a lot to talk about. It does bring in World War II and that part of history, and again, you're looking at it from a French perspective. There's an undercurrent in this small village of people who are anti-immigration. They call themselves the National Front, and whereas on most days they're just kind of that undercurrent, once this murder brings to the forefront this vicious crime that appears to be racially motivated, people start showing their real selves. I really love the character. I think that's why I'm going to come back to this. Bionnet, or Bruno. I'm just going to call him Bruno. That's a whole lot easier. He is restoring a shepherd's cottage in the surrounding area, so you get some of that talk of what it would take to work on a house, pull things back together, doing the yard. I'm not going to say landscaping. There is some gardening and landscaping kind of going on, but you need to think about like country landscaping to try and make it a home. One of the other main characters in this book is a policewoman from Paris. She's sent to assist him because, like I said, this is a small town. There are not a lot of murders. They are not used to investigating, and surely they are not used to investigating a vicious murder. So there's a little bit of romance in here. So this really has all the makings of a mystery series that I will return to. It has a great main character. He's intriguing. He's interesting. It has a great setting, that French countryside. He talks about food and the preparation of food in a way that is just poetic. I really enjoyed this book, and I will return to the series. So when you start reading, you can tell that Bruno is expecting to have moved here to this simple country lifestyle where his biggest responsibility will be like managing the annual parade, right? And then there ends up being this murder that is just graphic. Now, he has been a soldier and he has seen unspeakable things, so it's not like he's walking into a scene that he can't handle. He just is not expecting that to be the part of his life, being a policeman in this small country village. I know that at our book club, some people felt like the story was very slow. It is slow. There are 13 books in the series, so it takes its time. It is setting up for the rest of the series, but I like a novel with a slow progression. I don't need a race into the end. You know, like Guest List, it is definitely a page turner, race until the end. You know that it's all coming, right? This is a book where the murder happens at the beginning. You have no idea who did it, but you do know the murder and the details of the murder at the very beginning. And then there's a slow progression of clues and bringing in the suspects and interviewing the suspects and getting to know the people in the town and how it all relates. And I'm fine with the slow progression when it comes to a mystery crime novel like this. So I thoroughly enjoyed this installment, and I have the second one on hold. So the other book that our book club talked about this last month was Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. I'm not a huge Jodi Picoult fan, but I have read several of her books. I read My Sister's Keeper back in like 2007. And I think I've already book talked that one maybe. But I remember when I read that, I was finishing it up, and I was in like a van, and we were headed to the airport to travel with other people that were in my book club. We were going to New York for an English conference. And I got to the end of My Sister's Keeper. I got to the end and I was like, I can't believe that just happened. And that's Jodi Picoult, and she does the same thing in this book. She is known for presenting you with a moral dilemma where you think you know what you feel or how you feel about something, and she presents opposite sides the whole time that you're reading the book, and then she gives you some kind of whammy in the end. So they're entertaining. I do really like them. I just haven't read a lot of her books, and I probably need to read a few more, but this is another one that was super timely because of the racial tension in the book, matched the racial tension that we have going on in America right now. And it gave you both of those perspectives. So it's told from two people's point of view. I think two. There may be another one in there. But it is told from a nurse. She is a black nurse, and she is accused of harming a newborn child who passes away. And the parents are white supremacists. And so they didn't want her touching the baby to start with. And because the baby dies, really not a good thing. So it does go to trial. But you also get his point of view. I think his name is Turk. And then the mother of the baby, Brittany, I don't think she actually tells us her story. I wish I had it here so that I could flip through and tell you, but I don't think it comes from her point of view. I think it's mainly from Ruth, who is the nurse, and from Turk's point of view. Pretty sure it's mainly those two. Her lawyer is Kennedy McGuire. I think McGuire. I know it's Kennedy. She also tells her point of view. And she is a white lawyer representing a black client. She feels like she is completely impartial, and she has some reckoning moments also. It's a thought-provoking read. Kennedy is a public defender. She takes on the case and she thinks she can do a good job, and she does not want race to play a part in the trial. She's trying to just ignore race and act like that's not what the issue is, and it's totally the issue. I mean, he's a white supremacist who immediately said, I don't want the black nurse touching my child. So it's totally at the heart of the issue, but she wants to try attack it a different way. But what obviously we come to find out is that you can't ignore race. You just can't ignore that some people are motivated by racial tension. And I really love the surprise ending. I think it added a lot to the story. I know some of her other books, people get really angry in the end when she throws in that, like, you know, wrench. But in this one, it really plays into the story well. So 2 books that I finished on audio this month were part of the same series. I listened to the Loch Ness Papers. I was doing something in the house and I needed something to listen to, and I didn't already have an audio loaded onto my Libby. So I just went on, and this one was immediately available. So I said, you know, we'll try it. And it's called the Loch Ness Papers. It's part of the Scottish Bookshop Mystery Series. It is number 4 in a series of 6. It was published in April of last year, so 2019. It's a cozy mystery series set in Scotland around the town that is close to Loch Ness. So Loch Ness, again, is very much a part of the story. So Delaney Nichols has moved from Kansas. She read an ad in the paper. Her job was being downsized. She needed a new adventure. She took a job and came over to Scotland. We're at number 4, so we learned some of this background pretty quickly, but she's an American living in Scotland working at this bookshop that is more than just books. They do sell rare books and regular, you know, just books for a bookshop, but then there's a whole underside to the bookshop where they have a warehouse that they sell rare artifacts, and there's an auction that they run, and so that plays a part of the story too. But very much in the center of this story is an old man in the village who has been researching the Loch Ness Monster his entire life because his father disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And so you do get to know a little bit about Loch Ness. It actually made me thirst for more information on Loch Ness, and I'm not finding a whole lot of great, like I thought I would find like documentaries or like shows like this, like fiction based around the Loch Ness Monster, but I'm not finding anything that I really love as much as I loved this audiobook. It's a great cozy mystery and it was a fun read. Another main character is Tom. She is preparing to marry Tom in this installment. He owns the local pub. And of course it's a cozy mystery, so it starts off with a cozy murder at the beginning, which means there's a murder, but it's not graphic. You know how he died. They are descriptive, but it like glosses over it. That's what makes it that cozy mystery. So it starts off with a murder, and then it's usually like set in a small town with all of these characters in this really cool setting, and you get all this background information about something that's a very simple crime mystery, and that's why I love cozy mysteries. Easy to listen to while I was trying to get something else done. So after I listened to the Loch Ness Papers, I'm like, I really do like this little cozy mystery series. Let me see what the first one is and go back and start there. So the first one is called The Cracked Spine, which is the title of the bookshop that Delaney Nichols moves from Kansas to Scotland to work at. So this first installment tells you how Delaney ends up from Kansas to the Cracked Spine. You're introduced to the characters, the owner of the bookshop, the lady who works at the bookshop, the young student who works at the bookshop, the people that are involved in the auction, what the auction is about. So it really does set up the series for you. So whereas it was easy to pick up the Loch Ness Papers and start there, it was nice to go back and read that beginning part to set up the whole series. So the murder is the sister of the owner of the shop. So as she shows up to start this new adventure, she walks right into this like tragedy for the people that she's working very closely with. And she gets involved in trying to track down what has happened. So I will definitely return to this series. I enjoyed it. It was a great listen, so I will continue trying to do the audio versions of that series. Another audio that I listened to this month, and I think I had started it probably in June, and then I didn't get it finished, so it automatically returned itself, so I had to wait again for it to come back out. But it's called One of Us is Lying. It's by Karen McManus. It came out in 2017. I listened to the audio version, and I would highly recommend doing that. It is told from multiple points of view. Again, I know just like the guest list, that really turns some people off, but I really liked it. And in this audio version, it's like actors read each of the chapters, so each character has a different actor reading their part. And it felt very much like 13 Reasons Why, because there is a murder or a death at the very beginning, so it's investigated as a suspicious death, and there are all of these people talking to you about why the person who died targeted them. So super interesting. It is young adultish. They are young adults. They're in high school, the people that are telling you their story. Kind of breakfast clubby too, because that's how they got to know each other. They know each other, they go to school together, but they were attending detention the afternoon that the one student didn't make it out. It definitely has tones of a thriller, mystery, realistic fiction, young adult novel, all of those things. So I just really enjoyed this one. I definitely wanted to pick it up and read it every day. I was worried about the characters because anyone who was in that room when that child died ends up being a suspect, and they all have a secret. So again, very 13 Reasons Why. So Simon is the student who passes away during detention. Bronwyn, Cooper, Nate, and Addie are all in the room, so the story is told from their point of views. And eventually all their secrets come out, and you do find out in the end what happened, which is nice, because, you know, I started feeling like, oh, I don't know, you know what's going to happen is we're going to get to the end here, and they're not going to tell us, like, what actually happened. But she does. She comes through for you and tells you the end. There have been a couple of books that when I was reading, I thought I'm not going to be able to put on my library shelves because, you know, there was one where the student has an affair with the teacher and then she goes after him, and I think if she kills this teacher, I don't know how I'm going to do that. That's going to be a little uncomfortable. And this was one of those that talks about school violence, like big school violence. And I got a little uncomfortable there for a while thinking, oh, I don't know about that one. This is definitely one that you want to give that trigger warning to when you're handing it over to a student. But I was really impressed with, when I felt really uncomfortable about that part of it, I was really impressed with how she pulled out of that. And then it's a real big part of the story, and you do need, it's important. She needs to put that in there, and the way she dealt with it is respectful, but very much a part of the story and why we are where we are, right? So I really enjoyed that, but I know that is something that I always struggle with when there's a book that has something happen in it. I don't want to say that I don't agree with, because I mean, nobody agrees with school violence or, you know, suicide or teen suicide, those sorts of things, but how they're dealt with within the story to me makes a big difference as to whether or not I could stand up and say this very much deserves to be on our shelves. People need to read it. Yes, it's an entertaining book, but it also shares a story and shares a lesson to be learned. So I've talked to you about being a NetGalley reviewer. I think that happened in June, towards the end of June. So I did the Barbara Kingsolver's How to Fly. That's how I got Riley Sager's Home Before Dark, because I was looking for something else to do for NetGalley. I put in Cozy Mysteries, and these are the two that showed up. So I did go ahead and do them, but they're samplers, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. The cool thing is the one that I ended up doing first, Cozy Case Files, a Cozy Mystery Sampler, Volume 8, had a story from Paige Shelton, and that is the book series that I just reviewed, the Scottish Bookshop series. It had her latest installment, The Stolen Letter. So by sampler, I mean it has like 3 or 4 chapters of each of these Cozy Mystery series. Some of the authors I've heard of before, some of them I hadn't. Egg Drop Dead by Vivian Chin is a noodle shop mystery series, part of that series. I have not read that before or listened to it, and I think I would enjoy it. It was fun. The owner of the noodle shop has decided to try her hand at catering, and of course she shows up to a catering event and there's a murder. It also had Diane Kelly's Dead in the Doorway. It's the Apron Shop Mystery Series, which is the first one in a new mystery series by that author who I think has several other Cozy Mystery series. Dead in the Doorway is a house flipper mystery. It's set in Nashville. The main character, Whitney, has a cat, Sawdust, who also helps narrate the Cozy Mystery, so that was interesting. Hymns and Homicide by Elizabeth Penny is the first in the Apron Shop series. It takes place in Blueberry Cove, Maine, and Iris Buckley is the shop owner. She is trying to open a new shop with her grandmother, who's recently widowed, or aunt. I think it's her aunt, who's recently widowed, and when they go in to get things set up, they find a body. Beating Around the Bush by M.C. Benton. This is an Agatha Raisin private detective series. There are a ton of those Agatha Raisin mystery series, and I don't know why somehow I've missed out on that. I haven't read any of those. It also is a TV series, so I need to watch that because I think I would really enjoy it. I enjoyed the sampler story. So I turned in my review on Cozy Case Files, A Cozy Mystery Sampler, Volume 8. I still have Volume 9. They appear to be more holiday-based, and I will do those this week. So in my last video, I talked to you about Barbara Kingsolver. For NetGalley, I had the How to Fly, which is a poetry collection that is coming out this fall from Barbara Kingsolver. And I wasn't sure, I feel like I've read a lot of Barbara Kingsolver, but I wasn't quite sure how many. So I just wanted to show you, when I went onto her site, to Barbara Kingsolver's site, there is a nice printable, all of her bibliography, all of her books are on here. And I thought that was interesting. It has a picture of the cover and then a little blurb about it. So I've talked to you about Animal Vegetable Miracle. I read that in February of 2008. Small Wonder I'm going to talk to you about today because I reviewed it in the last couple of weeks. I read that in June of 2003. The Poisonwood Bible, I think I may have talked to you about that one too. I read it in February 2001. And then the Bean Trees, which I've reviewed for you before, and Pigs in Heaven. Pigs in Heaven, I think, is the second one to the Bean Trees. They're kind of co-reads. I did those back in the 2000s. And the latest one that I had read before reading the poetry collection that's coming out in the fall was Prodigal Summer. I read that in July of 2016. You know, Bean Trees is one of my favorite books. And then Homeland and Other Stories, which is a small short story collection. And I read that in July of 1997. So I started reading her back in 1997, and I've picked up a little here and there, but I still need to read Flight Behavior, Unsheltered, The Lacuna, Last Stand, High Tide in Tucson, Holding the Line, Animal Dreams, Another America. There's still plenty Barbara Kingsolver that I need to read. I wanted to show you how nicely that printed out to give you a little checklist there if you would like to read more Barbara Kingsolver. So since the last video, I have read and I reviewed here Martin Walker's Bruno, Chief of Police, Jodi Picoult's Small Great Things, Paige Shelton's The Loch Ness Papers and the Cracked Spine, McManus One of Us is Lying, Foley, The Guest List, and then Cozy Case Files, The Cozy Mystery Volume 8. So I had a good reading couple of weeks there. A lot of them were audio, and that does make a difference, but that takes me up to 42 books that I have read this year, which is on track because I'm trying to get to about 70 by the end of the year. So that puts me on track. I did update my reading poster, so I'm going to insert a picture of that here. But I did get that online. I know I can at least link the blog that I got it from. And then at school, I asked one of our teachers that has a big poster printer to print that out for me. And I've really enjoyed being able to fill that in this year. So obviously I had it at work, but when we shut down in March, I brought it home because I wanted to keep up with it. I love it. So in addition to the books that I have currently read for the last 3 weeks since I did my last video, I try and recommend about a book a day. I didn't get quite that many done this time around, so it's one of my goals. You know, we don't always hit our goals, but it's a good goal to shoot for, is to go back and find a book that I've already read, pull it off my shelf, and make sure that I have it on Goodreads reviewed for you. And if I don't, then to push that out there and try and do one of those a day. So back in episode 4 of the adult book chats, back when I was doing student and adult book chats, I did a cozy book recommendation, and I did Lillian Jackson Braun, but as I've been unpacking the books, then I have found some of her series. This one is The Cat Who Could Read Backwards. It's the first one in the series. She is probably the one that got me started on Cozy Mystery series, and I absolutely love this series. And I think I'm going to do a separate video and pull out all of her books and talk to you a little bit about each one. But if you go back to episode 4, I talk a little bit more in depth about the series. But I recommended that one this week, and this is the first one in the series. You can see, I mean, they're a nice size. They go very fast. Again, it's cozy mystery, so I like the character, I like the setting, I like getting to know the people. There's always a little cozy murder in there. They're a great series to listen to. Some of them I read the physical copies. And then this is one of those series where I started somewhere in the middle, and then I was like, I really like this, and I want all the backstory, so I went back to the very beginning, and then I listened to some of the audio, and I really enjoyed the audio performances of these books. So super easy to listen to. The public library has them. Really enjoy it. Another book that I recently reviewed is Ice Chiffon. It's a consignment shop mystery. It's by Duffy Brown. This is a book that I picked up at Cincinnati Books by the Banks, which is a local free festival that I talk to you about all the time. It usually happens at the end of October, beginning of November. This is one where I do have the author signing it. This is that free book festival that I keep telling you about, because you can get up close and personal with the authors. You walk around, they each have their own table. You pick up their books, you pay for all your books at the end. They can inscribe your books for you. You get to talk to them about them. This is just a cute, cozy mystery series. This is the first in the Consignment Shop mystery series. She has some other series too. There's a like a bicycle path mystery series that I haven't read yet, but I enjoyed it. It's set in Savannah, Georgia, so you got that southern read too. It would be a great one for the summer pool or beach reading. I came across this one back in 2012. The series now has 5 books. It does follow that well-known trope of a recent divorcee. She's probably in her 30s, 40s when she gets divorced. Her husband leaves her, and she has to find some way of making a living. So she turns part of their restored Victorian house into a consignment shop to make some money on the side. She's got to do one to be able to afford the other. It's just a fun, cozy mystery series. Back in episode 9, I talked to you about Cassandra Clare's City of Bones. It is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I unpacked that, so I wanted to show you the cover of that and remind you that they are making a TV series. They are calling it the Infernal Devices, which is the name of part of her series. Now, hold on here, because I know this gets a little complicated. So there's the Shadowhunter Chronicles, right? And that kind of encompasses Cassandra Clare's world of the Shadowhunters. Mortal Instruments is the first part of that series, right? So Mortal Instruments is a number of books. City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, City of Heavenly Fire. Those are all mortal instruments that fall under the Shadowhunter umbrella. And then in addition to that, there's the Infernal Devices, and that's like Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess, and then there's the Dark Artifices, and then there's Eldest Curses, and then there's Last Hours, and then there's Wicked Powers. So you have 5 different branches that fall underneath the Shadowhunters Chronicles, right? So the one that's being made into the next series for BBC is the Infernal Devices. So that's the second one that follows this Mortal Instruments series, okay? I know it's very complicated, but Cassandra Clare is known for being able to pull people in, and then they read all of her books. I really enjoyed City of Bones. Last night I was like, you know, I know there's a movie and I've seen it, so I'm just going to try and find it. It wasn't on my usual platforms, so it wasn't on Amazon Prime, it wasn't on Netflix. I couldn't find it any of those places. But whenever I searched on Google to try and find it, it said, hey, you can watch this on Amazon for free with ads. So I'm like, I'll rewatch it while I'm trying to get some stuff together tonight. It's terrible. I mean, I forgot how terrible the movie is. Lily Collins, I think, is the main actress, and I know she's super popular with my students, but oh my goodness, this is just abysmal acting. I think it's still worth watching. If you read the book or you like the series, it's worth watching, but man, it was a terrible movie. Just really poor acting, very poor acting, poor effects. But you know, I'm that person. I still, if you're going to make a movie about a book, I'm still going to watch it because it's a nice reminder of what the book is about. But I still enjoyed watching it last night, and it was one that I definitely didn't feel like I had to sit there and pay attention and watch everything. I've seen it probably 10 years ago, and you don't have to pay very much attention to it. So I'll link that article down below that talks to you about the Infernal Devices adaptation. So back in episode 9, I also talked to you about Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer, Artemis Fowl. I do really like this edition. It's got this nice code on the beginning. And if you've read this before, you know that there's also a code on the bottom all throughout the book that the author puts in there for the reader to decipher, which is really cool. So this is one of those early books that had the book come out, and then it was trying to pull you onto their website online so you could kind of play with other things that had to do with the book, like a puzzle or background information or play a game. It's one of the earliest books to do that. So I mentioned back in episode 9 that Disney Plus was offering this movie. It was supposed to come out in theaters, and obviously with COVID, there were no theaters there for a while. But I watched that on Disney Plus, and I did highly recommend it. I think they did a great job. But when I unpacked the book, I did want to do a little book talk with you on that one. Artemis Fowl is a series. I want to say there's like 8 in the series, plus there's a graphic novel series that's really well done. It is more like intermediate, middle school starting, but I definitely have kids that haven't read it and pick it up in high school and then read the whole series. It's a fun series. It's humorous. It's got that dark fantasy in there. Artemis Fowl is a child prodigy. His dad is in trouble and he has to use his skills and work with this not well-known underworld of fairies, and not the good kind of fairies, and try and find a way to save his family and his family's fortune. Another Newbery book that I recommended here lately is The Grey King by Susan Cooper. This was published in 1975 and won the 1975 Newbery Award. It is part of a series, The Dark is Rising. There is Oversea, Undersea, Dark is Rising, Green Witch, Grey King, and Silver in the Tree. So those are the 5 books that are in this series. But The Grey King, when it was published in 1975, did win the Newbery, even though it is number 4 in a series, which is super interesting. This talks about high magic. It's a children's fantasy series. It's another one where you not only have this fantasy setting, but it's set in this Welsh sheepland area, which is really interesting and intriguing for a kid to be introduced to this. There is a movie tie-in. It was called The Seeker, The Dark is Rising. It's available on Amazon Prime for a fee. So I haven't seen it, I haven't watched it. I put it on my list of things to watch. So I've talked to you about Michael Crichton in several of the other videos. The student episode 5, episode 7, 9, and 12, I talked to you about Michael Crichton. He is one of my favorite authors. I will read anything that he writes. I mentioned Rising Sun, but I didn't have it unpacked at the time, so I unpacked that and recommended that to you in the last couple of weeks. All of his books are a little bit different. This one focuses a little bit less on science than his other books. I read this back in 1994. It was published in 1992, so this is one of my earlier reads of Michael Crichton. It's his 8th novel. Remember, he is the author of Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Andromeda Strain, all books that I've talked to you about before. He writes popular fiction, often has a scientific pull into it. You know, when you're talking about the Jurassic Park world, it is talking about manufacturing dinosaurs. Andromeda Strain is more about that virus getting out. And Rising Sun is a murder mystery, thriller and suspense. It takes place in LA. It dives into the Japanese culture. There is a business meeting basically in this tower, and a murder takes place while there's this Japanese business meeting going on. That complicates things because Japanese culture dictates how you approach things. So when you have a cop come in and they're just like, okay, there's a murder, let's get started, here's what we do, they need to be paying attention to how this is all relating to that Japanese culture in order to get the information that they need to solve this murder. It's a time of economic distress. There's a Japanese conglomerate that's meeting. It's one of those books that when you're flipping through, you can see there's some transcripts, there's some interview transcripts. A lot of it is just narrative. I often talk to you about opening quotes and how I think that they really add to the making of a novel. This one is We Are Entering a World Where the Old Rules No Longer Apply by Philip Sanders, and Business is War, Japanese motto. So 2 great opening quotes to this Japanese business murder. In this particular book that also has ending quotes, if you don't want Japan to buy it, don't sell it, Akito Morita. There's also an afterword, and I think this is really interesting because Crichton is talking to the reader about that Japanese culture, and he's talking to you about how he set up the book and what he had to do to make the story go. And in the afterword, he talks to you about Japanese influence on American business. And then he also includes a bibliography. This novel questions the conventional premise that direct foreign investment in America, high technology, is by definition good and therefore should be allowed to continue without restraint or limitation. I suggest things are not so simple. And then he gives you a reading list, a bibliography of things to further think about what he brings up in the novel. It's a novel of fiction, but this is what Michael Crichton does. He interweaves so much truth into it to get you thinking about why this might not be such a great thing that we're allowing to happen without any limits. So you're talking about Japanese business and trade, and then the murder just brings all that to the forefront. So I have already talked to you about the Andromeda Strain, The Lost World, and Jurassic Park. So I am a big Michael Crichton fan. Another cozy mystery that I threw out there is Undead and Unwed. I don't know that I would technically put this in cozy mystery. I did put it up on my cozy mystery red shelf because you can see like it's a fun cover. It is a murder mystery type of book. It's by Mary Janice Davidson. So it's more of a fluffy mystery than a cozy mystery. The main character is a woman who is killed. I think she's run over by a car, if I'm not mistaken, but she ends up being a vampire. Betsy walks out of her front door one day. I think she's like chasing her dog or something, and she is killed. But then she wakes back up, and it ends up that she's a vampire, and she has to navigate this new world even though she's dead. And she has taken a lot of heat in her life because she is also unwed. So now she's undead and unwed. So double whammy. And there seems to be something weird about her. Like, she's not just somebody who's a vampire and now is in that world. She seems to be pretty important in the vampire world, and she doesn't know why. So she's got to like figure this all out. I do have several other books in the series that I haven't read yet, so that is on my to be read list. Mary Janice Davidson is one of the early writers of that vampire funny kind of vampire story. It's definitely chick lit. So far there are 14 in the series. This is the first one. It's set in Minnesota, and Betsy Taylor is having a really bad week. She loses her job, she died, and now she's come back to life as a vampire. So a wickedly funny, fast, fun read. Back in adult episode 4, I did those cozy mystery series, and I talked to you about Alex Erickson's cozy mystery series. It's a bookstore cafe mystery. I think I talked to you about Death by Pumpkin Spice, and when I was unpacking, I found Death by Coffee. This is the first one in the series. So it goes Death by Coffee, Death by Tea, Death by Pumpkin Spice, Death by Vanilla Latte, and Death by Eggnog. So some seasonal mysteries too. I mean, you know you've got me when you're doing a cozy mystery, but if you want to throw in some kind of seasonal read like Pumpkin Spice or Christmas cozy mystery, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm here for that. I will read whatever you write for it, and it doesn't even have to be phenomenal. This is not my favorite cozy mystery series, but I do like that it takes place in the bookstore cafe. Again, I'm here for that. There's the cat on the cover, there's the coffee on the cover, there's a pumpkin on the cover. You know, I'm here for that. This is my thing. So when I unpacked and I saw the first one, I just want to make sure that you could see those covers because they are lovely covers. This is another series that I picked up by Cincinnati Books by the Banks. I don't think Alex Erickson was there the last couple of years, though. I'm not really sure why, but I will still pick these up and continue on reading this series. Another book that I've recommended to you lately is John Grisham's The Firm. I unpacked it and added it to the collection of John Grisham that I have been recommending to you. Back in student episode 2, adult episode 2, episode 8, I've talked to you about John Grisham. He is definitely one of my favorite authors. I've not read him in a long time, and I really do want to pick back up and complete reading all of his bibliography because I've read so many of them, and I do really enjoy him. Usually he is a procedural lawyer thriller, but there have been a couple thrown in there. I've talked to you about Innocent Man, which is his nonfiction like documentary book. And then he also did The Painted House, which is semi-autobiographical. And there's some other ones thrown in there, Playing for Pizza, which I have not read before. And then he has a young adult series. Most of Grisham's books get turned into movies, and I did see that this is on Netflix. I started watching it yesterday, and then I got busy, so I'll go back and try and watch that again. I've seen it before. I enjoy it. Remember, it's Tom Cruise, and this is the paperback version, so it's got Tom Cruise on the cover. It's The Firm, Power Can Be Murder to Resist. Whenever I opened this up, it was cool because it had like an old bookmark in there that it says available in March 1992. So, you know, this bookmark older than my child. And then there was also a ticket stub for Delta Airlines. And apparently I picked this up at the airport, and it still says DaShannon Bunch, so this is before I was married in 1994. Or apparently in December of 93, I flew to Atlanta. I don't really know why, I don't remember that at all, but I do think I picked this up in the airport, and that's why I read it. I had read The Pelican Brief. That was the first John Grisham that I read, and then I really liked it, so I continued to read these. These are another one that I know that I picked up the audio whenever I was driving back and forth when I lived in Kentucky and I worked like 45 minutes away. You could go to the local Cracker Barrel and you could rent books on audio. And so I know that's how I did a lot of these books whenever I was driving back and forth for those 2 years. This book follows Mitch McDear. He's young, he's married, he's a lawyer, fresh out of law school. They headhunt him basically. They know that he fits the profile for the kind of person that they need to do their business. Their business is corrupt. It's very fast-paced. This is one where you're not sure if that main character is going to be the villain or the hero. There's a lot of paranoia going on, which is, you know, Pelican Brief. A lot of the way that his books are set up, they're based on the main character realizing that they are involved in something that is bigger than them. So I just wanted to throw that one out there because I had unpacked it. In the past, I had talked to you about The Brethren, The Client, The King of Torts, The Innocent Man, A Painted House, The Partner, The Rainmaker, and The Summons. And now that I have all my books actually unpacked, everything is out of the box and they're all right here, I will do a video like I was going to do Lillian Jackson Braun's and pull out all of the Cat Who series. I'll do a video and pull out the rest of the John Grishams. I'll get them on Goodreads, and then I'll do a video of just John Grisham because, again, he is one of my favorite authors. In episode 10, I talked to you about several Carl Hiaasen books. I know Hoot and Stormy Weather were two that I talked to you about in episode 10, but I had not unpacked Sick Puppy, but I did talk to you about this one. This is actually Margaret Nagley Shepherd, one of my best friends who passed away a number of years ago. She had given me this book, and this is a really fun one. I like all of Carl Hiaasen's books. Hoot is a young adult one. I talked to you about Stormy Weather is number 3 in the Skink novels, and Sick Puppy is number 4 in the Skink novels. Skink is that character that we meet in Carl Hiaasen's books. He is interested in environmental science and saving old Florida. He's a big fan, and if you are doing something to hurt old Florida and its environment, he's going to let you know about it. So we meet several new characters in here. Twilly Spree is an eco-terrorist with a trust fund. Again, Skink comes back. So we meet some interesting characters in Sick Puppy. It has Carl Hiaasen's humor. It's the underbelly of Florida's social elite. I can always count on Carl Hiaasen to end his novels with poetic justice. I think it's one of the reasons why I enjoy his stories so much. You can tell like I'm smiling the whole time I talk about him because you just remember what it's like to sit down with one of his novels. It takes you into that old Florida. It's fun. It's an adventure. It's always an adventure. He's great at character development. And he's just plain witty. So I've talked to you about Barbara Kingsolver several times. I talked to you about Bean Trees in Student Episode 3, Adult Episode 2, Episodes 9 and 12. I talked about not only Bean Tree, but How to Fly, her poetry collection that's coming out in the fall that I got to preview on NetGalley. Another one of my favorites by her is Small Wonder. I also talked to you about Animal Vegetable Miracle, but this is a collection of essays. The title, Small Wonder, is one of the essays that's included in here. You just get to know Barbara Kingsolver through here. She talks to you about gardening. She talks to you about her family. It just hits on a lot of the topics that she is interested in. And human interest stories. So, you know, I'm a big NPR fan. I love their human interest stories. There was one this morning on NPR about nanotubes, which sounds like something I would not be interested in at all, but it's very scientific. But just the way that they approach a story and tell you the human story just really intrigues me. And I think that's a lot of what Barbara Kingsolver does in her novels, but then especially in this collection of short essays. I talked to you about Bean Trees, which is the first book that I think I read from her back in like 1997. Another author that I've talked to you quite a bit about is Dean Koontz, so I unpacked a couple more of his books and I wanted to talk to you about The Mask and Soul Survivor, so I recommended these in the last couple of weeks. When I first came to Blanchester back in 1996, I was teaching sophomore English, and this was one of the books that they handed to me and said, this is a novel that you will be teaching the way we used to teach novels, which is pass out the books. Everybody reads it. We read some together. You read some at home. We do quizzes every Friday. We don't do that like that anymore, but this was one that was handed to me, and I had not read Dean Koontz, and it is a suspense, thriller, horror kind of fiction. And it was well received. My kids liked it. I liked it. I know that I'm still friends with some of my students on Facebook, and they've mentioned that they enjoyed it when we read it. Actually, I had read Lightning before I was handed this to teach, so it was good that I already had a love for the author before I had to teach another one of his books. I really enjoyed Lightning. I've talked to you about that one before. This book was published in 1981. It was originally published under the pseudonym Owen West, and I'm not sure I knew that back whenever I taught it, but I do love this cover. It's a haunting tale of a couple who wants to help out a child that might have more challenging issues than they know about when they bring her into their home. I did enjoy this book. It's not my favorite Dean Koontz book. I definitely like Odd Thomas and Lightning better, but he's another one of those authors that I would read anything that they put out because I know I enjoy his style of writing. Soul Survivor is another one that I mentioned, but I just had unpacked, so I wanted to go ahead and review that and show you the cover. I read this back in October of 2004. I had already read Lightning and the Mask and Fear Nothing and Seize the Night, so I had read plenty of Dean Koontz before coming to Soul Survivor. The weird thing about this is when I did pull it out of the box and I started writing about it, it's not the book that I was thinking of. I can't figure out what book I was thinking of. But this does start with a plane crash, which is what I was thinking about. I think maybe I've seen a movie and I was combining both whatever the movie is that I saw with this book. But in the plane crash, 332 people die. There are no survivors. And then one of them is the main character, Jo, is his wife. And after a certain amount of time, there's someone who surfaces who says that she survived the plane crash. So obviously there's something otherworldly going around. And he is going to get to the bottom of it because he's a journalist by nature, or he's a journalist by trade. So he is going to use his journalistic skills to find out what the heck happened on this plane crash that killed his wife and child. It's a page turner. I remember that it is a thriller in the full sense of the word, a thriller. There is a 4-hour miniseries that, and maybe that's what I saw. I don't remember. It's just the one that I'm thinking about is like there is a plane crash and 2 people walk away from it, and there's like a guy, and then the small child is sitting next to them, and there's something to do with that small child that she's able to walk away from it. What book is that? What movie is that? I don't know what, that's what I thought this was when I sat down to review it, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the right one. So it's that story of chasing down corruption and finding out why this was all hidden whenever 2 people in his family died. I've talked to you about Lightning. I love this book. I've talked to you about Fear Nothing, Seize the Night, and all-time favorites, Odd Thomas. So I talk more about Dean Koontz in the student episode 4 and in episode 7, so you can always go there and check out a little bit more when I talk a little more in depth about Dean Koontz. So in episode 12, the last one, I showed that this was part of my book haul. It's Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ning. It's a book of the month edition, which I have been scouring Goodwill to pick those up because they're great editions and they're timely reads, so I really enjoy the modern reads. But I realized that it was weird. When I went to look, I'm like, I just finished this back in December, so I couldn't find the Goodreads review. So I cleaned that up and threw that out there, and so I just thought that I would talk to you a little bit about that because I'm not sure I really talked to you a whole lot about it. This is also one of the Hello Sunshine books. I read it for book club back in December of last year. It takes place in Ohio, in Shaker Heights. And again, that setting is very much a part of why the story ends up being like it is. It's like a microcosm of where people are all interested in this community. Everybody knows everybody. You might fit in or you might stand out. And there's a family that it focuses on, and there's another family that moves in, and it's how those 2 families relate to each other and how their kids get to know each other and how the mothers collide. Family secrets, past secrets, teenagers getting together, family dynamics. Remember that Reese Witherspoon not only made this one of her book club choices, but she also then developed a series on Hulu. I don't have Hulu, I haven't seen the series, but it's on my list. This is another one that has great opening quotes. To those out on their own paths, setting little fires. And whether you buy a home site in the school section, Broad Acres in the Shaker Country Estates, or one of the houses offered by this company in a choice of neighborhoods, your purchase includes facilities for golf, riding, tennis, boating. It includes unexcelled schools, and it includes protection forever against depreciation and unwelcome change. Nobody wants unwelcome change because nobody likes change but a wet baby. But this is an advertisement in the Van Sweergen Company, creators and developers of Shaker Village in Ohio, which is a real place. It's a planned community. The other quote is, actually though, all things considered, people from Shaker Heights are basically pretty much like people everywhere else in America. They may have 3 or 4 cars instead of 1 or 2. They may have 2 television sets instead of 1. And when a Shaker Heights girl gets married, she may have a reception for 800 with the Meyer Davis band flown in from New York instead of a wedding reception for 100 with the local band. But these are all differences of degree rather than fundamental differences. We're friendly people and we have a wonderful time, said a woman at the Shaker Heights Country Club recently. And she was right, for the inhabitants of Utopia do in fact appear to lead a very happy life. And that appeared in The Good Life in Shaker Heights in Cosmopolitan in March of 1963. So super interesting. The author is from Shaker Heights, so she knows what she's talking about. And it definitely sets the stage for the tragedy that the book opens with. I talked to you about Little Fires Everywhere in episode 9 and 12. All right, so those are all of the recommendations that I've been throwing out, like one per day, where I've read them in the past, but I wanted to talk to you about them as I was unpacking and shelving them. I talked to you a little bit about the book haul that I had. So part of my book haul was the guest list, and I'm still here. Both of those are part of my book haul because they were sent to me free by Hello Sunshine, so I really appreciate that. I also picked up this in the last couple of weeks. It's Impossibly Perfectly Normal. It's a novel by Morgan Bryant, who teaches English at Blanchester High School with us. And she published this with Amazon, which is a really cool experience that I would like to find out more about. And so I will link this below where you can get this on Amazon. And again, we went to a book signing, so that was cool. And I haven't read this yet, but it's on my to-be-read list. I went to the Ohio Bookstore, which is downtown in Cincinnati. That's a local independent bookstore. But they deal more with older books, and I picked up 2 books while I was there. Hazel Meyer's Freezer Cookbook and Homer Hickam, The Colwood Way. Homer Hickam, we did a Skype book club meeting with him with my book club a couple of years ago, and super cool guy. I'm trying to think of the book that we read by him, but I read a couple of books by him, so I picked that one up, The Colwood Way. It's a memoir. It wasn't October Sky that we read. I've read October Sky, I think, but I can't remember the name of the book that we read by him. But it was fiction, but again, throws a lot of his personal experiences in there, and he was a great author to Skype with. I popped into the thrift store one day and picked up Thrill Ride by Rachel Hawthorne. I haven't read this one, but I am a big Rachel Hawthorne fan. I've read several books by her, including Love on the Lifts. I picked up Meg Rosoff's, she wrote How I Live Now, but This Is What I Was. Just thought it was a really pretty cover, and I know she's one of my young adult authors that students usually like to read. And then I already have a copy of this Book Lust by Nancy Pearl. She's an NPR librarian. She is basically America's librarian. She's out in Seattle. I already have this book, but I needed a copy for school, so I picked that up because, you know, when you're going to Goodwill, they're like $1, maybe 50 cents even for a paperback. And another time when I popped into the thrift store, I got 2 more Book of the Month reads. The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hogue. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And then November Road by Lou Burney. So super excited about those 2. This one is September of 2018. This is June of 2018. So those will go on my shelf on the Books of the Month, but I have not read either one of those. And I did, when I picked this up, I'm like, you know, I will pick up anything that's the Book of the Month because they're good recommendations. But then yesterday I was listening to Book 2 by Noelle, I think it was Noelle Gallagher, and she was talking about the Kiss Quotient, that she had just read that. So that was really interesting that she's talking about one that I'm like, oh, I just picked that up. So in some book news, I always link my website below that has a read page on my website that lists all this book news so that it's all gathered in one place for you. My website is lovindee@weebly.com. This is where I share some of the stuff that's come across. I usually try and share it on Facebook, so if you're following me there, you can pick it up there. But then I also like to mention it here. But Penny Reed, who I have recommended, I can't even tell you how many times. I love her books. They're all ebooks for me. I don't have any physical copies of her books. But Truth and Beard was free on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure if it will be when you're watching this video, but check her out. And that happens quite frequently. If you follow her on Amazon Prime, it'll come up and say, you know, this is free for a limited time. But I recommend any of her books. She has numerous series. And Truth and Beard I have read and I love it. I also shared an article of authors of Summer's Hottest Mysteries, and it did a little piece on Lucy Foley, which is the guest list that I talked to you about on this video. Someone tagged me actually in this article, and it's Queen of Crime, How Agatha Christie Created the Modern Murder Mystery. I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, and this is a great article that talks to you about crime fiction, the classic murder mystery, and then how it's evolved over the years. The author is Joan Acosella. It was published on August 9th of 2010, but it's a great article that talks to you about that murder mystery. Lots of those keywords in there that they describe and talk to you about. She talks to you about how the murder mystery was set up by Agatha Christie, the formula that she follows in her 66 books. It gives you some of Agatha Christie's background, and it is a rather interesting background. Talks to you about her family and her career. And then her 2 main characters, Poirot and Marple, Miss Marple. Mainly she really talks to you about the the formula of the murder mystery. The red herrings, the clues, setting up the crime, finding the culprit, finding their MOs. I really enjoyed the article. I feel like it reads kind of like someone's study on an author that they wrote a paper for in college. It kind of reads like that. I really enjoyed it, and I think it did a good job discussing the various traits of the murder mystery, and that's why I love murder mysteries. In other book news, Ready Player One, which I have not read but is super popular and has been popular in my high school, the sequel is coming out, so I will link that below. It comes out in November. I may have talked to you about some of these other things. I can't quite remember which ones I've mentioned to you, but remember that Bardugo's Shadow and Bone is coming to Netflix. Stephen King should be his Stand is coming out on CBS as a movie. Barbara Kingsolver's Poisonwood Bible is being made for HBO. 100 Years of Solitude, which is Marquise, that is being made into a series for Netflix. Pullman's His Dark Materials series was made for BBC, but I'm having a hard time tracking that down. So that brings me to what am I currently reading? I am currently going to finish for NetGalley the Cozy Case Files, A Cozy Mystery Sampler Volume 9. I've read several of those stories, so it's not going to take me that long to finish that. I have the Reese Book Club, the Hello Sunshine one that they sent me that I'm Still Here that I need to read this week. I'm still making my way through Emily Lay's Grace Not Perfection, and again, I think I will wrap that up this week. Also on NetGalley, they've started releasing audiobooks, and I just got All the Devils Are Here. It's a Louise Penny, which again, murder mystery that I love. It's coming out in September, so I have that advanced listen. From NetGalley, I also have Jessica Strausser's Too Much to Ask. This is one where it's got a couple of different titles, so I don't know if it was a working title or what, but it's coming out this fall, and I've started reading that one. It's an intriguing read, so those are what I'm going to be reading this week. My book club is meeting not this Thursday, but next Thursday, and we will be talking about Where the Crawdads Sing. I've already read that previously, but I'll have a little bit to talk to you about that, I'm sure. And then this is also our planning session, so I'm very open to suggestions. We will sit down and pick like 12 books for the next year, and our rule is always someone that's recommending it has to have read it. But I usually do go in with some titles that I've heard about or that I know are recommended, and then I'm able to throw those out there and say, has anybody read this? Would you recommend it? So if you've got recommendations, throw them out there for us. On Facebook, I also linked Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. The New Yorker put out the whole short story, so that link is on there. The Ohio Bookstore is downtown Cincinnati on Elm Street. It was really cool, you know, very old storefront. When you walk in, the guy that is working the counter is very old. He called us girls, which was fun. And then, I don't know, there's probably five I'd say, stories maybe, that you can walk through all of the books and, or walk through and just look at all of the old books. And I just really enjoyed it. It was a fun trip. I know I talked to you a lot about murder mysteries, so I will just throw out there a couple of TV series that I've watched lately that fall under that umbrella. So yes, they're not book related, but still really like them. But Outer Banks has been fun this summer. It's on Netflix. We did finish up The Mentalist on Amazon Prime. I think I talked to you a little bit about New Blood. It is on BritBox, and it was produced by Anthony Horowitz, which is one of our authors, so book related. My son recommended that we watch a movie called Molly's Game. I watched Healer on Netflix. And then just yesterday, I came across the term mystery noir. I don't know why I didn't think about the fact that, yes, obviously it's noir, but those are the kinds of mystery shows that I've been watching a lot of lately. And this would cover things like Shetland, which I've really enjoyed still watching that one, and Hidden, that's on Acorn, I think. Hinterland, Wallander, Vera, The Sinner, Broadchurch, A Confession, Summerdoll Mysteries, even though that's subtitles. This past week I watched Loch Ness because I was trying to find something like Loch Ness Papers, but it just talked about a murder that happened in the city surrounding Loch Ness. It had nothing to do with the Loch Ness Monster, unfortunately. We also watched Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich. That was terribly disturbing, but definitely a must watch. We should all know what's happening with that situation, and is continuing to happen because now the girlfriend is in prison and facing charges, thankfully. It's a very thought-provoking show about how people turn a blind eye to money and power. And I mention that because Carl Hyacin and James Patterson are both featured in that documentary. They helped produce it or write about it. They both live down by where Jeffrey Epstein lived there in Palm Beach. So they're interviewed, but they also have a part in making this documentary. So you do have that author book connection to watch that show. For my beverages with books today, I did want to show you the actual bag. It's Roaming Goat Coffee Company. It's the Highlander Grog. I picked it up at Kroger's here in Cincinnati, so I thought that was cool that they were carrying that local coffee. But they are set in Columbus. I went to a coffee festival maybe 2 years ago, and their company was there, so I have tasted their coffee before, but it's a good, strong Highlander Grog. Really enjoy it. So that is my beverage with books today. I don't even know what number of coffee shop stops that I'm at, but I did visit a new one in the last couple of weeks. It's called the Black Coffee Lounge. It's downtown, and it was an excellent cup of coffee. And follow me on Instagram, and I chronicle all of my local coffee shop stops. I've also been recommending some podcasts to you, and one that I really highly recommend that I've just found in the last couple of weeks is called Park Predators. It's fairly new. I listened to it on Stitcher. I want to say there's only 4 or 5 episodes. But it is a series about murders that take place in national parks. Super intriguing. You know, one of my favorites is My Favorite Murder. I think that's how I came across Park Predators. My Favorite Murder somehow makes everything funny. I know it's about murder. They are not irreverent. Well, they are irreverent, but not the humor. I don't even know how to describe it. You just have to listen to an episode and see if you appreciate it. But it's true crime, but they deal with things through humor. But Park Predators, not funny, and it's only one lady who's telling you the whole story, but she just does a fabulous job of really drawing you into the story. So highly recommend Park Predators. Another really thought-provoking podcast that I listened to was Joe Rogan and Jocko, how do you say his last name? Willink, I think that's it. Very timely. You know, I like to listen to these podcasts while I'm cleaning or whatever. It makes my mind focus a little bit. And it was a great conversation. I'm super glad that I listened to that one. On social media, I also shared The One and Only Ivan by, I think her name's Catherine Applegate, if I'm not mistaken, but the trailer came out for that movie. Super cute book. May have been a Newbery even, but looking forward to that one. She also has a sequel to The One and Only Ivan that I've talked about before too. Anthony Horowitz, the Alex writer, it says that it should have come out already, but again, I'm having a hard time tracking that down. But they did a made-for-TV series, supposedly, but I don't think it's been released yet. And remember, Anthony Horowitz is the guy behind New Blood that is on BritBox. It's just a pretty short series. I want to say maybe there's 3 or 4 parts to it, and maybe there's 2 episodes in each part. So pretty short series, but really enjoyed that. I did watch Adam's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy 2005, released a movie. It is on Roku if you want to add that to your to-be-watched list. Remember, it's super quirky, but you either like it or you don't. I've been watching a little bit of Louise May Alcott's Little Women series, the 2018 TV series. It is on Amazon Prime. And as always, I am happy to be your friendly librarian. I thank you for tuning in. I really enjoy doing these book chats. I like sharing with you the book reviews on Goodreads and throwing out one of those every day. I like sharing with you when I finish a book, letting you know how those are going, talking to you about what I plan to read for the next week, showing you my book hauls. I really enjoy that. I enjoy the podcasts and the books to movies and the book news. It's a great outlet for me to be able to throw it all out there to you. If you are a fellow book lover, I hope you're enjoying these videos. All the books that I talk about are reviewed on my Goodreads if I've read them. Everything is linked to my Facebook page and my website. Remember, you can easily access most of these books from your public library. You do not need to purchase these. I know, especially when you look at all my bookshelves and all the books that I have in my house, people are like, you spend a lot of money on books. I do not. You know, my book haul, I showed you. The 2 book of the month books were $1 at the thrift store. I had several paperbacks. They're like 50 cents at the thrift store. The only book that I paid regular retail for was the one from my author, my English teacher author friend. And I bought that off of, I bought that from her at the book signing. I think it was like $10, super cheap. I have another friend who has written a book. It's a memoir, and I plan to purchase that one. So either I'm going to get it off Amazon or I will buy it at her author event. But those are books that I buy retail. Everything else I either get from the public library or I do online through the public library for ebooks. I'm getting through NetGalley, or I pick them up at thrift stores. I very seldom pay retail for a book. Let's be social. Follow me on Facebook, Goodreads, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter. Check out my website. Hit the subscribe and like buttons. Comment, email, message, text. Talk to me. I love to talk books. Tell Tell me what you're reading. Tell me what you want to read. Tell me what I talked about that you want to read. Let me know what you're looking for. Keep in touch, folks. Enjoy. I do really want to send out a thank you to my 51 subscribers. When I started this journey back in March, I would have never thought that.